Okay, I'd like to make 4 points, if I may. Number 1, who are you to say that the war in Iraq is illegal? Which criminal court has made that determination? Has the UN made that determination? Has the Hague made that determination? I know that Secretary General Kofi Annan has made that determination. However, he has no jurisdiction or say in the matter. He has about much say in the matter as Jacques Chirac or Ahmadinejad or anybody else who would like to say that it was an illegal war. But the bottom line is that he is not a criminal court. So what do you base that on? What do you base that statement on? Is that your own idea, your own assertion? Are you an expert on international jurisprudence? No, I don't think so. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, Saddam Hussein did everything within his power to relinquish his sovereignty. Number 1, he invaded his neighbors, Iran and Kuwait, in illegal wars, real illegal wars. Number 2, he was in violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. You could say that he wasn't in violation of that treaty after 1991. However, Iraq Survey Group head David Kay testified before Congress that we have found the programs and that they could have been restarted as soon as the inspectors had left and the sanctions lifted, which there was great pressure on the UN to do at the time. A lot of people wanted to lift the sanctions. Just because the weapons program's on button wasn't pushed in is highly irrelevant in this matter. So, the third thing that he did to relinquish his sovereignty would be the massive, brutal mass atrocities that he did against his own civilian population, from the Al-Anfal campaign, systematic genocide against the Kurdish people. No debate, it was a genocide. Using chemical weapons against his own people, both before and after the invasion of Iraq, to squash the uprising that we promised to support and we never did support, to great disgrace. It was a definitely black mark on the international community's record to abandon the Iraqi people when they needed us most. But that's besides the point. To massive crimes against humanity, human rights abuses, just right up until the March 19th, 2003 invasion, liberation, I should say, of Iraq. They're well documented. Just go to any human rights, go to Human Rights Watch, go to Amnesty International. The human rights abuses are well documented, from chopping people's arms off for petty theft, to the torture chambers, to cutting people's tongues out for speaking against Saddam. The list goes on and on. So Saddam Hussein's sovereignty, if he had it, was highly limited by the UN sanctions that had, and he had violated those sanctions on numerous occasions. Also, Resolution 6, let me check right here. Resolution, okay. Now, you could say that UN Resolution 1441 did not authorize all necessary means. Thus, it was not an authorization for use of military force. However, Resolution 678 was still on the table. It had never been lifted off the table. That is what we cited when we went to war with Iraq. And that's the one from 1991 that did authorize all necessary means. But the language of it is quite clear. It says that all necessary means are allowed to enforce the sanctions in all subsequent sanctions that followed the liberation of Kuwait. But Saddam Hussein never did abide by those resolutions. He was in constant and flagrant violations of them. Okay, so Resolution 678 was still on the table. All subsequent resolutions kept that wording on the table. It was never lifted. That's why I would say that the Iraq War was not illegal. It was the enforcement of international law rather than a violation of it. Okay. And now on to the third point. Now let's say, for the sake of argument, that Saddam Hussein did in fact have the right to sovereignty still, that he had the right to murder and torture and slaughter his own people, that his 2 delinquent sons had the right to rape, murder, and pillage at will. Let's say that he did have sovereignty. Okay. Saddam Hussein took power by force. He maintained that power by force and the brutal oppression and repression of his civilian population. So just who are you to say that an outside power doesn't have the right to remove such a tyrant by force? Okay, that's my third point. The fourth point, I would like to get on a little bit into Iran. Okay, I would not like to see a war against Iran. I don't believe that there is going to be a war against Iran, because they have luckily for us, they have the youngest and most moderate, the largest, youngest population on the planet that is very moderate. They don't like the mullahs, they don't like the clerics. So I would like to see aid and funding go into democratic movements within Iran, the way we did with the Eastern Bloc, that brought about a soft revolution from within. That would be the best outcome for everybody. However, it must be stated and cannot be stressed enough that Iran cannot be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons. This is unacceptable. Okay, first of all, Iran has threatened its neighbors with utter destruction on numerous occasions, time after time. They have threatened to wipe Israel off the map, destroy Israel. Israel will not live to see. Israel cannot live long. Other quotes to that effect. I don't have them in front of me. Just speaking off the top of my head here. Okay. Number two, the reason why Iran cannot be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, which would be Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, you could argue that Hezbollah is not a terrorist organization. I don't believe that the European Union recognizes it as such. I think Britain does. I can't be sure. I am fairly positive that they do. I know for a fact that the United States recognizes Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. And if you could make the argument that they're not, but they meet every criterion necessary to be labeled as such. They are a subnational clandestine organization that uses violence and the threat of violence against non-combatants in order to coerce and intimidate a society. Hezbollah meets those qualifications. Okay, and it's well documented, well known that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. Iran funds, trains, arms, and other ways, various other ways, supports Hezbollah. It's pretty much not even a debatable point. It's well documented. Okay, the third reason, and this is the big one, the third reason why Iran cannot be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons. Okay, Iran is a Shiite nation. The Shiite and the Sunni do not get along with each other, as we have seen, unfortunately, in Iraq. They do not get along. Now, if you think that Iran will obtain nuclear weapons, and that this House of Saud, which is Sunni, that King Hussein of Jordan, that the entire surrounding Sunni neighbors are going to just sit there idly by and allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons and not react to that by obtaining nuclear weapons of their own, you're crazy. What happens if Iran obtains nuclear weapons is it's going to spark a nuclear arms race in the most unstable region of the world. That is unacceptable. It cannot be allowed to happen. It cannot be stressed enough why that cannot be allowed to happen. That's about it. Back to Iraq and its violations of the UN resolutions. It's known that right up until 2003, and this will just be my final point, I'm just throwing this in there, that Iraq was attempting to purchase an entire line of Type-O-Dunk missile system from North Korea. I just thought I'd add that in there as another point. Also, you could argue that Iraq was not involved with international terrorism. I would argue that it was. They certainly had ties to AQ. You could quibble of whether or not they had a collaborative relationship with one another. I believe that they did. I have mountains of evidence to back that up. For example, Dokek's memo, I'm not exactly sure which one. I'll find it. I'll post a link to it if you request it. Proves beyond a shadow of doubt that Saddam Hussein was seeking recruits of suicide volunteers to strike against U.S. interests from his own military. That's Dokek's. If you want to look into that, that was the Dokek's project with the captured Iraqi captured Iraqi papers. There was thousands of them, so they put it on the internet. First project of it, intelligence project like it of its time. It's subsequently been taken down from the DoD website because the New York Times ran a story regarding how it leaked nuclear WMD secrets that shouldn't have gotten out or some such thing. That's pretty much a non-point. Just if you want to look into it, it's DOCEX. Jay Vertatis, Jay Berettis, he has a bunch of translated documents. I'll try to find a link, but it's really not a non-issue. The four first ones were the main points, regardless. Alright, thank you. That's about it. Peace.